Okay, so before we go about converting our friend tracker application over to full stack, let's talk a little bit about basic full stack conversion strategy. Okay, so in other words, when we're faced with a front end application that's basically fully functional, how do we go about converting that over to be full stack? Well, I'll tell you what I do. What I usually do is go through and identify all the places in my application where I'm either loading or modifying data. Okay, so in our friend tracker application, there are, I think, about 10 places where we're doing things like this currently. The first thing, let's just talk about where we're actually loading or using data. Okay, this is something that usually takes place in our context currently. So first of all, we need to be able to load our friends. Okay, we also need to be able to load our favorites, of course. Okay, these pieces of information are used in several pages across our application. And we're also going to need to be able to load our friends by ID, right? This is going to help us out on the friend detail page. So we're going to need to be able to load individual friends. We'll just say load friend individually. Okay. And additionally, we're going to need to be able to load our user's profile data. So we'll say load profile data. And that's about it. So these four things here are currently the data needs of our application. So this sort of thing is generally going to become a get endpoint of some sort. Okay, each of these is going to become its own endpoint, as you'll see. Okay, so that's loading data, and these are collectively referred to as read operations. Okay, that's the R in CRUD that you might have heard about. Next, let's talk about where we need to be able to create data. Okay, so the main place we need to create data is going to be when we create a new friend. So we'll say create new friend. And you might also consider adding a friend to your favorites, a create operation as well, since this is actually adding an ID to our favorites array. So we'll just include that under create for now. We'll say create new favorite. And there is kind of a fuzzy line sometimes between these things. It kind of depends how you implement it on the back end sometimes. So these are our two main create operations that our application has currently. And when we convert our application to full stack, these are generally going to become endpoints on our server that listen for post requests, right? The post request, again, allows us to include extra information, right? Such as the information for a new friend if we're creating a new friend, or the ID if we're adding a new friend to our favorites. Okay, and these are, of course, the create operations, which is the C in CRUD. Okay, and next up we have update operations. There are a few cases inside our application where we need to update some kind of existing information. The first one is when we edit our friend's information. So we'll say something like edit friend info. Okay, so when we go to the friend detail page and we click on edit and we make some changes to their data by, changing some of the values in the text inputs, and then we click on save. That's when we need to update that friend. Okay, and the other time that we're going to need to do this is when we edit our own profile data. So edit profile data. Okay, and these together make up the update operations, and these are generally expressed on the server by using put request routes. So there's not really a whole lot of reason that you would use a put request instead of a post request, and I've certainly seen it done with post requests when you want to update some kind of resource, but it's just the RESTful convention to have put requests in this situation. So these, of course, make up the update section, which is the U in CRUD. And the last thing we're going to talk about is deleting resources on our server. And I'm kind of running out of space here, but there's only two main cases where we'll need this. And those are when we want to delete a favorite. Okay, so when we want to remove someone from our favorites. And the other case which we actually haven't implemented in our application right now, but that is going to be when we delete a friend. Okay, and if we have time, we'll be seeing how to add that as well. Okay, and these are expressed on the server usually by making delete endpoints. Okay, so we'll be sending a delete request to those endpoints in order to activate them, and of course, that is the D in CRUD. Okay, so these are all of the different data needs in our application at this point, right? And I've been talking about them as if we've built our server, but the fact is that all of these are currently handled simply in the favorites context and in the friends context as functions, okay? So essentially what we're going to do is for each of these, we're going to create the corresponding endpoint, and we're going to convert over whatever component it is or whatever context it is that's actually handling that data to get its data from the server and to make requests to the server when we need to change some kind of data. And again, this strategy of mapping out all of the different data needs of your application can really help when you're converting over a front-end application to a full-stack application. So I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.